This is DHG with my conclusion of Ninja Gaiden 3. Throughout the game, I kept a notebook and a pen handy, and I just jotted down things that I thought were pros and cons of the game. For the cons, I have quite a few, and for the pros, I have considerably less. So I'm just going to go over these as they're written down. There are no particular order. They're not tiered in order of importance or anything. It's just things I've noticed going through. Okay, off to the first one. The game does not let you deal with encounters as you choose. For example, when you get the bow, you can only use the bow. Now, this was at the beginning of the second level, I believe. I'm surrounded by motorbikes, and you think, since you're this close, you could just slash it anyway, but it doesn't matter. The game doesn't let you. You have to shoot them with the bow. That's the only choice you have. You actually had some choices in the other Ninja Gaiden games. And I feel I should point out, too, before I go any further, that while I mentioned Ninja Gaiden 2 a lot in my first 3 videos, I went back and played Ninja Gaiden 1 for a couple stages just to try to get a better feel for how closely tied the second game is with the first, and it's pretty much spot on, except the first game's a little bit more difficult. Or I shouldn't say a little bit, it's a lot more difficult. Which, for someone like me that likes masocore games, that's perfectly fine. But now I digress. Going to get on to the second thing here. I explained a little bit of this in the videos. There's no exploration at all. In the first game and the second game, you go through, it was kind of like Doom, where you had a small arena encounter with a bunch of enemies, or just a few, and then you explored for a little bit, and you could find little tidbits, an item here, maybe a weapon there. It added a nice change to the gameplay, whereas in this game, it was just encounter after encounter after encounter. And with some of the other things I'm going to be bringing up, these encounters just become so copy and paste, it's tiresome at points. My third point is the changes to the key aren't welcome, and they weren't needed, quite frankly. The only key you get is this fiery dragon that comes up and, I guess, flies through people and burns them. It feels more like a Final Fantasy summon than it does a key that was in the last 2 games. They nailed it with the second game, how the key was supposed to work and everything. I don't know why they did this. Fourth point. Repetitive voice work. You'll hear the same voice lines throughout the entire game to the point where you're just going to wince every time you hear it. Fifth point. Combat is too focused on flash rather than a tight, fast reaction. It feels like an action game. It feels more like an action movie, not a game. By that I mean it would be more entertaining to watch than it is to play. And it's not like Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 where the combat was very tight, almost Souls-like. In this game, that's completely absent. They gave that up. Next on the list, I guess it's 6, is there's no items. No variety in weapons, Nimpo. You only get one key, which is Nimpo. And you only get 3 weapons throughout the entire game. In Ninja Gaiden 2, you had a whole plethora of weapons that you could use, and they were all fun. And like I said, there's no items. I don't know why they took that out. Apparently they were trying to mainstream it. My next point. Combat offers no choice of execution. This one I had to sit and think about what I meant for a minute. But what it was is, in the first 2 games, you'll occasionally have some sort of a ranged attacker, which is just going to make your life hell if you ignore them, probably kill you. Or at least offer a deadly distraction. Where in this, you just bring out your bow and it auto-aims right on them. Where in the other games, you had to seek them out, try to balance fighting the people attacking you, the pressure attackers, versus these people at the ranged. It's a whole mess in this game. The enemy types are dull and repetitive. When you combine that with the repetitive voice work, it just feels like you're fighting the same enemies throughout the entire game. basically because you are. They do throw some new enemies in from time to time, but it is basically the same military style dudes that you see in the very first level throughout the whole game. No flavor text. This one particularly bothered me, because in Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2, specifically 2, you would find dead ninjas lying around that had something somewhat humorous to say at times. Nonetheless, it was still interesting to read and would break up the gameplay a little bit more, pace it out a little better. This game, like I said, is just encounter after encounter. This goes to my next point. It feels like it was made by a different developer altogether. I actually had to check the game case to see if it still said Team Ninja. It did, but I don't know what went wrong there. Maybe a new creative director, but they really weren't into it for this game. Next point, it fell to gaming trends of that time, which was, I guess this game came out in 2011. Gaming trends such as a forced multiplayer, quick time events, no longer treading its own path. It wasn't an innovator anymore. It started to do what other games had done. And it seems like this and Resident Evil 6 both fell victim to the god-awful quick time events and just not having anything original. Well, Resident Evil did have some original things in it, but this game not really. Quick time escape grapple is very shoddy. In Ninja Gaiden 2, you had a specific button you had to mash. It was either wiggle the left trigger or smash the square button to get out of a grapple. In this game, it's a quick time event. Any quick time event's bad. You can find better ways to bring players into what's going on the screen. My next point is the chase sequences are an odd choice. Yes, indeed they are, just because Ryu Hayabusa does not retreat. The whole government contractor storyline is rubbish and does not get better. This one had me kind of laughing. It almost has some sort of a so bad it's good appeal, but it's totally cringeworthy. The story, it's the mystical factor from Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 isn't there. Instead, it looks like they tried to incorporate a Call of Duty-like story element where it's super serious into the gameplay, and it just does not fit whatsoever. I mean, come on, a ninja running around for Japan's Self-Defense Force doing special operations missions? Give me a break. Uneven sound. This is my last complaint, and it's not really a big one, but you'd think they would have evened out the sound a little bit more. For example, when you're doing the regular fights, it's, say, a pretty consistent volume throughout the game with the music and all that, but as soon as you summon that Nimpo, the bass just drops so loud and thunderous I had to take it off my speaker system and start using headphones. So that's that for my complaints about the game. Okay, and as for the pros in the game, I had already done this, but I screwed it up. I tried to record my voice over a section that actually had audio. You would think by now, after doing this for a couple months, I would learn to double check before I destroy my resource materials. Maybe one day I'll learn. But the cool moments. If you're looking at the video in the background, you're going to watch a scene that I thought was particularly interesting, which was an extremely dark cave. It was hard to find your way around, even with the let's just say obnoxious hand holding that the game gives you, where press down on the right thumbstick to find your way. It still wasn't very clear where you had to go until these bugs started coming out. And as you can see, I mean, it was pretty neat. I thought that was a flash of brilliance in a game that was pretty lacking in that area. And talking about flash of brilliances that could have been, there was a dinosaur fight that was one of the main bosses. Now, ninja versus dinosaur, they could have made that an epic boss fight, but they managed to make a trifecta fail out of it. What I mean by that is, like I've already pointed out in the previous videos, there's no enemy health bars, so you just hack away endlessly and wait for the eventual quick time event to come up. And that's pretty much what this dinosaur fight was. No health bars, you just hacked away and hacked away, waited for a quick time event to come up, and in between the 3 segmented boss fight, which first was hack away, wait for quick time event, then in between they throw a chase in there. The chases are retarded. But, so yeah, the boss fight could have been pretty cool, but no, they failed on that one. The trifecta fail. This is listed under Coleman's because, like I said, the dinosaur fight could have been cool. It would have been a good game if it weren't tied to the Ninja Gaiden franchise. Like, if it were a spin-off or something. I'll get into that later. Half the way through the game, I found myself forgetting that I was playing Ninja Gaiden. Or I just stopped caring and I found myself enjoying it a lot more. And that should say something about the game right there. And I should have put this first, but kind of forgot since this is my second take. The first thing most people are going to notice about the game are the graphics. They're amazing. You can't find any faults with that. Playing through this with, I got good computer equipment. I can play games in 4K and all that. The graphics still had me going, wow, they did a really good job for, 10 years ago. So you can't knock that whatsoever. Now I'm going to get back to what I mentioned on this would have been a good game if it wasn't tied to the Ninja Gaiden franchise. Not necessarily. I'm going to compare it to another game. If anyone remembers the Metal Gear series, I'm sure everyone's heard of that. Metal Gear Rise and Revengeance was a game that came out on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 that kind of had people scratching their heads. I don't know if Hideo Kojima was responsible for developing it, but it kind of felt like he wanted to make a kind of like a Ninja Gaiden game in the Metal Gear world, and it worked out pretty well. I kind of felt like they should have taken their ideas for what they did with Ninja Gaiden 3 and put it in a spin-off, because having the big 3 after Ninja Gaiden makes it feel like it's going to be a true sequel to Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2 when all of the gameplay says otherwise. They wanted to take the sequel in a new direction, and it clearly didn't pan out because there wasn't another Ninja Gaiden made after this dung heap. Like I said, though, it could have been a good game if it didn't have the 3 moniker after it. If it was like Ninja Gaiden Special Operations or something like that, they could have done something with that. And so, to the question, how bad is it? Since that's the name of this new series I'm doing. It's a matter of perspective. If you walk into it like I did, a Ninja Gaiden fan that tried to play this game I shouldn't say a couple years ago, 10 years ago, played it for about 20 minutes and shut it off, then you're going to be completely disappointed. The first 2 games are so far above this that it's just unbelievable. But if you're not a fan of the franchise or you haven't played one before, you might enjoy it because it's a fairly solid action game. But when it comes to the Ninja Gaiden franchise, no. So how bad is it? It's pretty bad. If you like the first 2 games, stay away.